Hi students, it's Miss Tran. Today we are going to get into the truth behind Julius Caesar. But before we do so, let's get started with a few fun facts about him. So, did you know that the month of July was named after Julius Caesar? Okay, I guess that one was a no-brainer there. But it was formerly known as the month of Quintilis, and it was named after him because he was born in the month of July. So, interesting fact there. Another fun fact is, did you know that Julius Caesar was the father of the leap year? So if you have that poor friend who was born on February 29, blame it on Julius Caesar because he was the one who invented the leap year by having an additional day every 4 years in February so that it would align with the rotation of the planets around the sun. Interesting fact there. So to add on to the third fact for today, we have, did you know that Julius Caesar was the one who invented the Caesar salad? All right. That one is totally false. Don't take my word for it. But it was named after Caesar, particularly Caesar Cardini, an Italian-Mexican restaurateur. So don't believe me. Don't think that it was actually Julius Caesar. It was this guy right here, right? But of course, any salad can be a Caesar salad if you stab it enough times. There. So, getting into our lesson today, we have, who was Julius Caesar? So, Julius Caesar took on three main roles in his lifetime. By the age of 31, he was a successful military leader, statesman, and dictator. He was born as Gaius Julius Caesar. His birth date is often debated, and with history getting all muddled and such, it is believed that he was born in July 12, around 100 BC. But he is particularly remembered for being one of the greatest military minds. Now, starting with Julius Caesar and his rise to power, he formed the first triumvirate. And we could say that Julius Caesar's reign in power and strength as a military man ran through his ancestry and blood. He's the nephew of another famous Roman general named Marius. And around 60 BC or so, he formed the first triumvirate. And this triumvirate consisted of himself, the great Pompey, and Crassus. However, know that they weren't exactly the best of friends. Julius Caesar acted as a negotiator between Pompey and Crassus because they didn't get along. So this shows you that Julius Caesar was able to use his abilities to create alliances that worked for his benefit. But then, of course, as time passed by, we have Crassus, who eventually passed away. And then Caesar and Pompey had a civil war between each other. So things disintegrated within the first triumvirate, and Caesar and Pompey emerged and resulted in a civil war with each other. But during his reign in the first triumvirate, Julius Caesar was an excellent military leader. With his armies, he was able to conquer many places. He attacked Gaul, which is also known as a modern-day France, Germany, Britain, Egypt, and while in Egypt he had a little affair with Cleopatra, just a tidbit there, and he is mainly credited for expanding the power of Rome. So we have that rhetorical device, I came, I saw, I conquered, also translated to Latin as veni, vidi, vici, right? So the expansion of the Roman Empire happened very fast with Caesar's power, and he was gaining quick momentum while he was in the first triumvirate. And of course, that quick succession of power stirred a lot of emotion and fear in the people. And Brutus, yes, Brutus, the guy who we were reading about, who had to gather his conspirators to go against Julius Caesar. So, Julius Caesar was also known as a good statesman. And a statesman was a figure of authority who had experience in action in government matters. So on one hand, we had the positive view of Julius Caesar. But then on the other hand, we have the negative view of Julius Caesar. Let's start with the positive, and then we'll move towards the negative. On the positive side, Julius Caesar was great with his people. He made excellent reforms. He was able to alleviate Rome from its immense debt. During that time, Rome was having a shortage of coinage. People weren't able to pay their taxes. And what Julius Caesar came up with as a result was he had tenants not pay interest for a year and not pay taxes for a year. And in doing so, he was able to alleviate Rome from 1/4 of its debt during that time. Plebeians during that time were also encountering unemployment. So what Julius Caesar did was he had them create new infrastructure for the state of Rome. And in doing so, new edifices came up. Rome became a new cultural hub for the people and visitors and tourists coming by. So there we have new infrastructure. He cared greatly about his people, so grain supply was a huge issue during that time. What he did for the poor was he subsidized grain and ensured that the poor got a larger ration and portion of the grain so that they'd be able to live on a daily basis. And as a result of all of that, Rome was able to increase in its power and its vitality and vibrance as a city and became the hub of culture and education. But then on the other hand, there was a negative view of Caesar, of course, because he was so good at what he was doing. He was very ambitious, he had great ideas, he was quick thinking. But then with jealousy in the midst, there was a negative view of him, thinking that with too much power and advantage over the people, he would eventually lead them into tyranny. We have Julius Caesar then portrayed as a dictator. And during that time in ancient Rome, a dictator's role was meant to be temporary. However, in 44 BC, Caesar assumed the position for life. So, what happened there? The people feared, particularly Brutus and his conspirators. He thought if he was going to assume the position for life, then what would happen to our freedom, our rights? And then with the conspiracies made against Julius Caesar, we know that he was assassinated by Brutus's conspirators and his people. He was assassinated by getting stabbed 23 times. And after that occurrence, we think that, hey, there's no possibility of tyranny, right? Wrong. By having him assassinated, it created the reverse effect. What happened after Caesar's death was the formation of a Roman Empire. And as a result, Augustus, Caesar's great nephew, who was also known as Octavius, became the first Roman Empire. What resulted from that was the second triumvirate. So as we've been reading from Julius Caesar, we know that his friend Mark Antony is mourning over his death and has to think of ways to avenge for his friend. So this is what resulted. Caesar Augustus, Julius Caesar's great nephew, Mark Antony, who is Julius Caesar's friend, and Marcus Lepidus formulated the second triumvirate in avenging against the conspirators for Caesar's death. Now, with this load of information being placed into your minds right now, we have to relate it back to why did Shakespeare compose a play on Julius Caesar? And just to provide some context for why he wrote this play back when he did, 100 or so years, thousands of years ago, Shakespeare wrote this because he's noted some similarities between his living conditions in Renaissance England to ancient Rome. And in Renaissance England, we see that it was governed by a monarch, Queen Elizabeth I, and during that time, it seemed like she didn't really have an heir to take over. So that resonated with him by seeing how Julius Caesar was meant to be a dictator for life. In Renaissance England, there was also a lot of religious conflict between the Catholics and Protestants. In ancient Rome, there was rebellion and war. There was a lack of voice in the people from Renaissance England, and also a lack of voice from the people, with Julius Caesar taking over each and every corner of what he wanted to be the perfect state of Rome. So this ends our lecture today on the truth behind Julius Caesar. I hope that was helpful, and I hope that will help guide you in how we're going to complete the rest of this play. Thank you.